This is not a good way to shoot content for YouTube. If you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you know that we're closing on 1,000 consecutive days on YouTube without a single day missed. But I've been shooting content longer than that. That daily content started in mid-December 2018, but I'd started shooting content earlier that year, something like October or something like that. But the entirety of the content I've shot for YouTube has been on an iPhone 6. Now, 3 years ago, an iPhone 6 wasn't, that old, but my iPhone 6 has seen better days, and it's about time to get a new one. We're shooting this in August, and I usually like to think about getting a new iPhone sometime around September, because iPhones usually come out on September like 7th or 8th or something that happens early September, where they usually bring out their new lines, and that's what I'm kind of hanging out for. But for some reason my phone is just really starting to pack in, and the problem is, especially with the video, I don't know what it is about it, but it's not enjoying me shooting video content. And usually what's been happening in the last few days is that I'll start a video, and once the video gets started, it'll just keep on going. But today, for some reason, the videos keep cutting out. And what I've actually done, you can't see this, but behind you is the balcony windows in my apartment. And usually I'll have the curtains closed, but I've got the curtains open, so the reflection of the screen, the iPhone 6 screen, is in the window, and I can see that the video is still actually running. Because if it stops and I just keep doing the video for 10 minutes, and then I go and check, and there's no video there, it's like, no, I have to do it all over again. So I can see myself in the window, in the screen, in the reflection of the screen. But it's really nerve-wracking, you know what I mean? It's like I'm on sort of edge. Is it going to cut out? Is this going to fail real soon? So it's not a great way to shoot content, to be all sort of uptight and worried about something other than what you're thinking about. And I should be really focusing on these shoes. So let's try and do that. Let's try and park the fact that my iPhone 6 is kind of the little gerbil inside is starting to run out of steam and isn't giving me the power that it needs these days. But hopefully a new phone will come down the line, in the next few weeks, and this issue will not proved to be terminal. I'm kind of worried about it. I do have a new iPod, but I don't remember if it has a camera on it or not. I don't think it does, but if it does, that'll be what I'll do, is I'll shoot the content using that. But little problems, little things to overcome. We'll see if we can work our way around it. I've also got an iPad Pro somewhere that I got for a birthday. My wife got for my birthday one year, and I was like, I have no use for this. I'm not at all a digital fashion designer or anything like that. I don't need an iPad Pro. We have another iPad Mini that my little girl uses. It's got this massive rubberized case around the edge of it, so that when she drops it or breaks it, doesn't break and stuff. So but anyway, I mean, all that aside, let's forget about that and get into this shoe. It's an Air Force One Move to Zero, and I'm going to save the Move to Zero stuff to the end of the video, and we'll go with the Air Force One stuff first. And what I mean by that is we'll talk about the shoe first and the detailing on it, and then at the end of the video, after we've looked at the shoe, we'll look at what the Move to Zero means and what it all represents. So very simply, it's all about trying to get more recycled stuff into shoes, and what that means we'll come to later. But first, let's take a look at the detailing on the shoe. And there have been a few of these over the last couple of months, different Air Force Ones with different ways to try and get recycled materials into the shoes. And this, to be honest, is probably my favorite so far that I've seen from that line. There's some really nice subtle hits on these shoes that I really dig, and especially it's about the color in the heel section of the shoe. So first things first, let's zoom in onto that heel section of the shoe. Now, it's basically a triple white sneaker, except for this heel section where you can see a few colors kind of coming together to play off of each other, and there's actually one detail that overrides all of that makes these things work. So first the colors, then that detail, and what I'm talking about is a sort of double hit of orange up high on the shoe, and you can see that around the heel and around onto the branding on the back. Now, at first I thought it was a kind of gradient orange, but when I looked at these pictures here, and you'll be able to see on the green screen, you can see it's not really a gradient orange. It's a very solid orange in one color of orange. It's not sort of fading from dark orange to light. And then below that you've got the swoosh first, and then below that you've got the grays. Now, and all of this I thought was a kind of a flow, or like I said, a gradient between the colors in the different sections of the shoe. And it wasn't until like I zoomed in and had a real close-up look that I realized that they're much more compartmentalized into their sections of the shoe, specifically those orange parts and those grey parts at the back. So that's probably my favourite part of this shoe, and it's why I think it's one of the nicest Move to Zero shoes we've had so far, especially from the Air Force One line. But I did say there was something more to that colour in there, and there's an extra bit on the shoe that I think raises it above a bit, and it gives it that feeling of the gradient. And what we're talking about is that kind of square overlay that's on top of it, a sort of translucent material that's on the top of the coloured sections on there, and you can see that it's done in squares, and I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying it runs the full length of the shoe. Now I'll bring up a shot of the toe and you'll be able to see the kind of materials that are used on the toe, and I think I'm right in saying when I looked at it that that kind of overlay, that extra sort of cover on the outside edge of the upper in those squares is running for most of the length of the shoe, except for two places where it isn't, and the two places are in my all-time favourite material. And if you've been a regular viewer at the channel, you'll know right now I'm going to say tumbled leather. I absolutely love tumbled leather. I think it's a great material to find on shoes, a marker of quality, a hallmark of the extra mile that the company have gone to produce a shoe. And there's two places they use tumbled leather on these guys. One is up on the lace stays, wrapping around the lacing system. You can see the white on there and that sort of rumpled, crumpled, tumbled leather effect on there. And it's just a beautiful material to have in a shoe. And then below that, on the swoosh itself, absolutely gold to use tumbled leathers in there. Really clean materials, a really nice effect that brings to the shoe. And it's very important because the front 2/3 of the shoe are triple white, so adding that extra definition of the tumbled leather materials in there gives it a little bit more to talk about than just that triple white going on in there. But there's another, a little sneaky, little hidden addition to the high up parts of the shoe, and again it's offset by another contrast, and what we're talking about is up on the tongues. Now you'll be able to see two things behind me here on the green screen. One is the wildly colourful Volt yellow insoles with the 8 swoosh pinwheel that marks out the Move to Zero initiative at Nike. That 8 swooshes in a circle like that is all about Move to Zero and recycled materials in there. So looking down on the insole and seeing that black pin wheel on the really popping Volt yellow or Volt green or something along those lines insole is one part, but the other part of it, the more interesting part to me, is the tongues and the way that the tongues have that pop of orange on there, which really represents the back end of the shoe and gives it a bit of balance in there too. But more important than that is actually the materials of the tongue. Hard to see, but hopefully on the green screen here you can see zoomed in, there's a very neat mesh material going on these tongues, which I super get. It really fits the rest of the shoe. This shoe really works well with these tongues in there. I was kind of surprised to see it. It's almost like the square 90-degree angles of the upper, and then on the tongues you've got a much more elongated sort of diamond effect going on in the mesh in there, and they kind of oppose each other, but they work all in triple white. Tongues I think are a really neat addition to the rest of the shoe, and that's pretty much the upper part of the shoe. But then you still have the major elements of the midsole and the outsole. Now I have to try and get this right because it's is it grind rubber? I don't think it is grind rubber. Crater foam and grind rubber, that's what it is. The midsole's made of crater foam and the outsole's made of grind rubber. And basically what you've got going on in both of those places is a lot of offcuts of rubber used in other shoes that have been ground up and pushed back into the production line rather than just stuck out there on the trash. So it's great to have those elements of recycling right in your face, and you can see the detailing on the midsole and the outsole on these guys. And of course towards the back of the midsole you see that air branding in there as well, which is a great place to look for the branding, but also to see that rubberized stuff that's in there. And they don't try and hide it, which is one of the things I like about the grind rubber, is those little chunks of rubber from another shoe are very obvious, not just in colour but also in texture. They don't try and sort of fade them in or melt them into the other rubbers on the shoe, so it's kind of a neat detail in all the grind rubber shoes, not just these ones in particular. But speaking of these ones, let's go back out and have a look at the whole shoe. And like I said, we'd finish up this video with a talk about that Move to Zero initiative. And what it is that Nike are jumping on the same bandwagon that just about anybody in the Western world and the first world is jumping on, is trying to get as much recycling into their production lines as possible, because there's a huge market and a huge industry for the people who are interested in trying to save the planet, reducing their carbon footprint, all that kind of stuff. So you see these Move to Zero initiatives at Nike, but you also see over at Adidas. You've got the Future Craft line as well, which has a massive amount of recyclability in it. So so that's what the Move to Zero initiative is. Sometimes they really hit on it and they get a lot of recycled stuff into the shoes. Sometimes a bit more miss. I remember seeing this shoe and it said something like at least 15% of this shoe is made from recycled materials. And I was thinking 15%, that's not really that much, to be honest. Maybe you can try for a little bit more than 15%, but maybe I'm being a little bit harsh. But then again, I did tour the Coca-Cola factory here in Tokyo, Japan once, and the guy was wearing a beautiful uniform, a Coca-Cola uniform, and was, looked like just your regular piece of, article of clothing, but he said it was made from recycled Coke glass bottles. They took the glass bottles and recycled them into fabrics, and his uniform that he was wearing was made from recycled glass, which I thought was fascinating. So so I think there's probably more that can be done in terms of recycling, but these guys, a great looking shoe, and I think it's probably the best Move to Zero initiative Air Force One I've seen so far. So a real nice shoe coming at us. I think it's August the 31st is the due date for these guys. Haven't seen them on the Sneakers app yet though. So so that's today's shoe, that's today's video, wrapping it up. I do this like every single day, so I'm trying to keep that daily content coming, and just give you guys the sneaker chat, the sneaker talk, and upcoming sneaker release, so you know what's coming down the line. But for now, it's just time for me to wrap this one up. Remind you one more time that I do this every single day, and then say the same thing that I say at the end of every single video, is that you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.